What's up guys, Rakowski here. Welcome back to another Victorian speed build. I know, shocking. Rakowski did a Victorian speed build, but at the end of the day, this is my favorite style of house in The Sims, and favorite to build. It's not the easiest to build, but you know what? Sometimes things are worth the effort. So you can see now, I'm just starting with the shell, and I just want to show like my full process, that way you get a good idea as to like how I actually do this. Because I think especially with The Sims 3, you have to know what you want before you start. In The Sims 4, you can build boxes and just move things around, stretch it out and whatever, and it's really like quick, so you can make drastic changes without a whole lot of effort. In The Sims 3, if you need to make a change, sometimes you have to take apart a whole side of the house, which we'll see soon. So as you can see, I'm using the roof pieces that I know and love. These are from like the modern century manor thing. Anyway, it's the store item when you go back in time and look at this ugly green house. I have a whole video on that, but at the end of the day, the roof pieces are where it's at. And even though I'm not a fan of the capitalist structure of the Sims 3 store, I like that I can buy this and I can use it, because it really just adds that extra touch to a Victorian build. These are not necessarily Victorian roofs. They're actually a little bit more old-fashioned than, say, like a more modern Victorian. When I say modern, I mean like 1890, you know what I mean? But irregardless, I love using these roof pieces, and you can get away with a Victorian build by doing like steep gabled roofs and the octagonal roofs on the tower. I just think this adds like a little extra bit of detail, and I like to use these roofs for like the more expensive houses. You could use these roofs for other types of builds as well, especially more historic builds. Like you could do a colonial build with this, or a similar kind of like, you know, Victorian or Edwardian house, but this is definitely on like the nicer side, so I only like to use this for mansions. Now, you can see that I'm deleting the tower, and the reason for this is because I felt the shape was too bulky. When I panned away and went into first person, I felt the back was just too like back heavy, you know what I mean? It's kind of like those Instagram girls where they like manipulate how their butt looks. I didn't like it, so I decided to delete the tower and recreate it a little bit closer on the inside. So now when you see it from like the front, you see like the front tower, you see the back tower sticking up. I think I add a third tower at some point. Honestly, I don't remember. It's been about a week since I built this. The way that I used to do these videos is I used to like immediately film my voiceover as soon as I finished building. So in my brain, I still had the whole building process and everything. I thought it might be a little bit more interesting to build it, wait a while, and then look back and kind of look at it more from like your guys' perspective, because you've never seen this house before. And even though I've looked at this house for hours, after you build, your brain kind of fleshes everything out, you know what I mean? So I'm doing a bit of rediscovery. So one of the parts I cut out was the porch. Very easy. You saw when I started the house, I built a giant rectangle foundation. My suggestion is, if you want a foundation, do it over the whole lot, then build your house, then delete the foundation that you don't want, because then that way like you don't end up having to like have to sneak it under and like delete things. And anyway, it gets all frustrating in The Sims 3 if you don't know what you're doing. So all I did was I just kind of like traced around the house in a nice way, and I played with it a little bit. This wasn't like my first choice of a porch. I just kind of like drew the fence and and deleted the foundation, and like just kind of played around with it until it looked right. I thought 2 tiles away from the house is a really good space for a porch, especially for a house this size. Sometimes you can do 3, sometimes you can do 1, and sometimes you do like a giant porch like EA. So as you can see now, I'm making a lot of decisions when it comes to the windows, and the windows that I choose in a lot of my mansions. They're just these like base game 1-tile arched windows, and they remind me of The Sims 1. So it's got that like nostalgic feeling, and it just kind of like makes it look more like a Sims mansion, if that kind of makes sense. I don't know. So I just kind of did what EA does. I put about like, you know, 75 windows around the house, and I do keep most of them. I change a few of the styles and whatnot, but the tower pretty much stays the same and everything. So I'm moving on to like the outside like patterns and colors and textures, and I kind of had in my mind, I want to do 2 strong colors, because Victorian houses can be bright red, they can be bright blue, bright anything really. So I decided to go with like 2 complementary colors, and I thought, okay, which 2 should I do? Red and green? No, because I don't want it to look like Christmas. Blue and orange? No, because I'm not EA. And then I thought, you know what? Yellow and purple. But it's not like a full-on actually, it is a full-on purple right now. I didn't really know what shades I wanted to use, but for yellows, I definitely love a more golden yellow, just like the shirt in the background here that I made. Like, that's a yellow that I like. And I thought, if the yellow is so bright, I want the purple to be like darker and kind of toned down a bit. I actually went with more of a pink. I was considering pink. This siding, my goodness, I left in this whole process because I wanted to show you what it's like to pick the colors and the ugly things that you come up with beforehand, because I don't just know exactly what I want to do. I have to play around with it. I have to see, I drag the color wheel, I change the bricks, but at the end of the day, you just have to kind of keep going until you see it and you're like, that's what I want. And for me, it took a while. We're still doing it. I can't believe how long this took, even in speed build form. This, like, the color wheel takes way longer than you expect. So you have to be careful with stuff like that. If you're, you know, if you're on a bit of a time crunch, not necessarily like a time challenge, but if you just want to build for an hour, don't get into the color wheel. Have a whole separate time for that. Sometimes I'll do like the whole thing and then color everything, which is kind of what I did for this shell. I did all the architecture, the windows and everything, and then I started picking the colors, which may have not been the best move at all. And if you think about it, I'm kind of like coloring like all the roof pieces and whatever, and doing those individually is a little bit tedious. It would probably be more efficient if I just kind of like chose the colors, then made all the roof pieces, but I didn't want to do that and then change the color after, you know what I mean? So when I finish the shell, I usually jump right into the interior here and just start kind of figuring out the furniture. I like to place down a few couches, a few wallpapers, a few tables, just to see the kind of vibe that I'm going for. And I didn't know what color I wanted the living room to be, and I decided to go with green. Like, it's not an EA green really. Well, I guess it is a little bit, but it isn't too bad. And I like using green in Victorian builds specifically because of the arsenic green wallpaper that was popular in the late 1800s. But ignoring the green, I do kind of like integrate like a little bit of this like pinky purpley fuchsia color just to balance it out a little bit. I like to have kind of two colors in a room, one dominant and one kind of like an undertone color, and then like a few basics like some wood or whatever. By the way, the wooden floor, I do not keep this. I have not done my floors. Floor wood is like one of the hardest things for me to do in The Sims 3. I don't know what it is, and I just find doing it last really helps, because if you do the floor and especially the walls first, then you have to pick your furniture, you have to make it all go together. I'd rather pick my furniture first and then pick a wall that just goes with it, if that makes sense. So as we can see, this process takes me a lot longer than the building, which is I think a little bit uncharacteristic. I notice in other people's speed builds, they struggle with the shell and then they can just furnish it like quickly, and I'm a little bit of the opposite, which I hope is a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more interesting to watch. So if you have any furnishing tips, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. I rip apart EA's builds, so I guess I've opened myself up to criticism as well, and it really doesn't bother me too much. So we are moving on to the dining room, and this is like for better or for worse. So I'll say now, the dining room has the most renovation later on in the build, so you're gonna see some ugly purple and like some really ugly choices in the dining room. I was just thinking Cassandra Goth, and when I'm doing this style of house, my mind always kind of defaults to the Goths, but if you look at the exterior of this house, it has nothing to do with the Goths because it's bright yellow and like fuchsia pink purple thing. So anyway, I kind of skip over the dining room because I spend a lot of time picking the purple, which I immediately get rid of. So we're moving on to the kitchen. The kitchen is kind of hidden at the back of the house, which is very typical of a Victorian build, but I still like to kind of make it nice, even if it's just for like the help to be working in. So I stuck it behind this bookshelf door, so that way like the servant can sneak through the bookcase and serve the guests in the dining room without having to be seen or noticed, if that kind of makes sense, because that's like an old-fashioned kind of like mindset, right? And I don't mind playing into that in a video game. In real life, I think it's gross, but like in a game, this is my only shot at this, right? Because like it's kind of like my dream to live in a giant Victorian mansion with a butler. I guess we'll have to see how the channel goes for that one, but so far it's not happening. Now I'm struggling with the counters. So in The Sims 4, again, a strength of The Sims 4 is you can kind of cheat in and like make like diagonal things work a little bit better. In The Sims 3, the counters are snapping and everything. Anyway, I don't want to complain about it too much, but you can see I actually changed the kitchen into a rectangle shape instead of the little diagonal corners. I just didn't think it worked as well. And the kitchen turns into this like malachite marble, which I'm not mad at it. Like, I'm not a green fan, but I figure in a Sims house, you have to use green according to EA. So at least I can pick some prettier greens. The kitchen also turned out a lot more simple than I had initially anticipated. Like, I wanted like a little bit more of an old-fashioned kitchen, but then like by the end of this build, this is more of like a modernized version of a classic Victorian house. So this is not like a historically accurate house. You can actually do those really well in The Sims 4 as well with all the off-the-grid toilets. But for this one, I decided like it's a 100-year-old house, but they've kind of upgraded it through time. So it's got modern plumbing, modern appliances, even if they're old-fashioned styled and all that. So I'm moving on to the bathrooms. Bathrooms are my favorite to build in The Sims. I think it's because they're so simple and they have like very logical like kind of checklist: toilet, sink, tub, or shower, or whatever, or both. And you can make them kind of interesting and nice. You can make separate toilet rooms and stuff. This house isn't quite big enough for that. So I thought I built the house a little too big, and in fact, I may have built it a little bit too small. I call it a Victorian mansion, but it's only a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. I know, only. There's actually an attic and a roof, and I leave those usually unfurnished because if people want to download the house, play in it, they're gonna need like room for specific skill building items or like secrets or whatever, because everyone plays so differently. So I always like to include an attic where like there is absolutely nothing, in case your Sims need like a pinball machine or a pool table or workout equipment, because I don't want workout equipment in the fainting baby's room, if that makes sense. So I just kind of copy my bathrooms. Like, I don't think bathrooms should be that different within the same house. If you're buying tiles, you may as well buy all the same tile. Of course, these are in slightly different colors too. So like I said, the kitchen is in like a malachite green, and then the other 2 bathrooms, one's like a blue, and then one is like a fuchsia. So I kind of changed those all a little bit later. I don't remember if it's on camera or not. So we're back to the dining room. As I can see, it is still Cassandra Goth gross purple, and I still don't like it. So you can see I just moved back to the bathroom to kind of finish that off because I can't stand looking at it. I kind of picked the purple to go with the green living room, and even from a distance, I'm like, I don't like it. It probably would have worked if I picked a slightly different purple, but this is like an exhausting process because by the time you get to the dining room, you've already picked a million other colors, so sometimes you start to forget kind of what's going on. So now we can start to see what the inside is actually turning into. The bathroom, this is the upstairs bathroom because it's got a bathtub, but it's basically the same as the one below it. I also like to keep all my plumbing on top of one another because that's very realistic too in a real house. So you can see the 2 bathrooms are over one another, and then the ensuite bathroom is actually over the kitchen. So like that's where all your sinks would be, all your plumbing would be. So it all kind of makes sense in like a real life architect planned house. Even if this house is too whimsical to be built in real life, I still like to have like, you know, elements of realism sprinkled about the build. So you can see I've chosen a lighter wood for like the main floors and everything. This is very different for me. Like, I don't think I choose this exact wood. I think it's just a placeholder, but I do end up with like a brighter thing because with, I think the last one I built was specifically for the Goths. So you had a lot of things that looked like this dining room and everything had like black wood or gray wood. I wanted to brighten it up a little bit, use like a little bit more of like a cedary or like oak. I actually used cherry wood for the dining room, and it's okay in a Victorian house to use different woods for different parts of the build, because in a real Victorian house you have the oak room, the cherry room, and like that refers to which wood is in each room. So it does kind of make sense, but I still like it to be a little bit harmonious because it is a Sims house. You're looking at it from the top down, so I don't want it to be like rainbow checkers, if that makes sense. Actually, I shouldn't say that because I think this house kind of turns into rainbow checkers if you ignore the main halls, because as we can see, the living room is green, the dining room is now red, it stays red. Again, I'm trying for that complementary color thing. I was scared to use red because I don't like red and green together because it's too Christmassy, but the red I chose I think is fine. And now we're finally getting to the second floor, which is where the bedrooms are. So upstairs there's like 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. One of them is an ensuite for like the main bedroom, and one is like a hall bathroom with a bathtub and everything. And I decided to make this more of like a family house. I don't know, like I just think like Victorian houses, it would be for like, you know, larger because back then people had like so many kids. There's not a lot of room for kids in this house, but you could renovate it in a way where you could fit more Sims. I just decided to keep it kind of luxurious. So there's one main bedroom, one other bedroom that's almost the same size. It doesn't have its own bathroom though. And then at the very front of the house where the bay windows are over the entrance, you have the baby's room. So I made like a little baby room and everything. I made it pink, but like it can be for any Sim really. Inside like the main bedroom, I do change this a lot too, because as you can see, I pulled out this white dresser and I made the bed with like the white metal kind of looping around it. So, and the bathroom is white and pink too. So I thought that's the vibe I'm gonna kind of bleed into the main bedroom. But yeah, so ultimately I decided to keep that part of it harmonious. I didn't want the ensuite to be like a totally different concept than the main bedroom, because that might be a little bit jarring. Sometimes I'll do like the room really colorful and the bathroom really white. I think that's fine, but I don't like doing 2 completely separate color palettes. So there was a few things I also wanted to do to kind of like make it a little little bit more EA, a little bit more old-fashioned-y too, was I just wanted to kind of pick a few more typical colors, because I know I go a little bit crazy with colors. Like, most people don't have a fuchsia bathroom, right? Well, in The Sims, they have like baby poo green bathrooms, so I guess that's fine. But I was thinking, I wanted to keep like, you know, like a few old-fashioned elements, like a wicker chair, nice nightstands and stuff in the second bedroom, just to keep that old-fashioned vibe. I kind of skipped through most of the second bedroom because in reality, like, if you look at it, is that it just looks like a nice version of an EA bedroom, which is kind of what I was going for. When EA is like on their game, that's what their bedrooms look like. So I figured that that was good enough. And oh my God, I'm using a Katy Perry Sweet Treats end table in the baby's room. I always like to use 1 or 2 Katy Perry Sweet Treats items in my builds, and I don't know why. They're so outside of my aesthetic that if I can sneak it in, I think it's like a little bit of like a build challenge kind of vibe, if that makes sense. So the baby's room I spent the least amount of time on, probably because it's the smallest, but I'm the most happy with it. It kind of came together. I just picked this like non-offensive pink because the rest of my pinks are highly offensive. So I picked a non-offensive pink and just kind of like sprinkled it about and did some rugs and whatever. Then I went back to the main bedroom and started just filling it with crap, because to make like one of these builds look like it's real, you have to fill it with stuff. If you do a Sims house and just kind of grid everything out, it looks like a Sims house. Once you put things on like the desk and the nightstands and the counter and decorate it and everything, it starts to bring it into a little bit more realism, because in most people's houses, like, you have stuff everywhere, right? Like, even if your house is clean, like, there's something on this table, there's something in this drawer, there's something hanging on the wall, so it just fills up the space a little bit. Also, you notice that when I do my lights, I kind of do it a little bit closer to the end, and that's because when you put different objects places, it'll cast different shadows. And if you like kind of put your lights everywhere, then you put dressers, then the dressers can block the light and it can kind of look ugly. And I like to use a mix of lighting. I've mentioned this before, but just in case there's any like newer viewers who have watched 20 minutes into this video, I like to do different kinds of lights. I don't like doing ceiling lights everywhere. I think it's boring. I think it's uninspiring and basic and makes everything flat. So I like table lamps and wall lights and stuff. And especially in The Sims 3, it's so nice, and it just kind of makes it look a little more dynamic and three-dimensional and realistic, if I'm honest. Okay, so we're finally onto the outside and landscaping, and even though I love doing the shells and the interior kind of bothers me, the landscaping is kind of in between. I don't like doing the landscaping as much as the shell, but I certainly prefer decorating the outside as opposed to the inside, because if you have a huge empty chunk corner, you can fill it so easily. So as we can see, I have 3 main corners here that I need to fill in. One, I put a gazebo, which I'm kind of building through now. One, I put a swimming pool, which you saw me put earlier. And at the front corner, I put a garage because it's The Sims 3 and we have cars, so I figure why the hell not? But yes, the gazebo concept is not new to my mansions. I like putting a gazebo in most of my mansions. The Sims team puts gazebos in some of their mansions too, albeit they're a little bit uglier than this. But gazebos are like a nice, simple little area that you can kind of fill in a quarter of your lot, because you can have a little path leading up to it. You can have like something to do in there so your Sims actually go over there. Some people put a chess table, a telescope or something. I forget what I did, but I end up making it 2 stories, so there's definitely something in there. So starting the garage, I wanted it to be like 2 cars in the garage and 2 cars in the driveway, if that makes sense. This is not where the garage goes. I think I like delete it and move it a little bit, because again, with The Sims 3, you can't really just move stuff around. You have to start from scratch. But the gazebo is actually coming together. I decided to kind of decorate it with like plants and vines hanging on the second floor of the columns to give it a little bit more privacy, because it is up a little bit higher. I don't know, I just think about those things and I'm like, what would I want and what would my Sim want? Then I decided that I wanted to have this gigantic fountain for no reason, which meant I had to re-landscape my front path so that it would fit. Isn't that fun? Isn't that interesting? So anyway, I ended up doing that. And as you can see, like, it's really tedious. You have to do all the quarter tiles and make it all nice and stuff. So I wanted to leave that part in just to show you that it doesn't just come out looking nice. You can see I rechanged my whole front fence and everything, and I just changed things kind of as they need to be, because if it doesn't look right, I can't leave it. I have to fix it. And it might look right for me and not for you, and that's okay, but I need to have it the way that I want, which is great for The Sims because you can pretty much do anything that you want. And yeah, once I have all my spaces figured out, I kind of always do like prototypes. So like like I'll do like the shell of the house, I'll do like a box driveway and like a box garage, I'll do a gazebo in the back and then the pool, and then I just fill in everything in between. So I'm like, okay, what color do I want the pool? It does not stay blue, by the way. I don't know why I put that clamshell at the bottom. I hope I didn't keep that. That's a little bit ugly, but you know what? This far into the process, sometimes you make a mistake or two, and that's just fine. I love a fire pit in my builds. I don't know why. So I put a fire pit there. By the way, you have to buy Outdoor Retreat, I think it's called, for The Sims 4 to get fire pits. Why are they not base game? They're like one of my favorite Sims objects. I like, because once in a while you get a fire and somebody dies, so that's exciting, but it just gives your Sims like somewhere to just have a quick marshmallow instead of having to make food. They can sit outside. I don't like being stuck in my house in The Sims, which is another problem with The Sims 4, and I guess kind of The Sims 2 sometimes as well, is that you can't, like, there's no open world, so you can't just go places. But even in a Sims 3 house, I like having a fire pit. Now, there was a big chunk of outdoor area after I kind of fenced everything in, because this is a private residence. So I thought, okay, there's going to be like security and fences and half walls and stuff kind of sprinkled about. And it also makes it so your Sims don't end up everywhere. Some parts of this yard are completely fenced off, so they can't get stuck in the shrubs and everything. But I find when I have like empty spots like this, I just scribble down terrain paint, start placing trees, and just fill it in with foliage, because why not? Like this house has 3 buildings. It doesn't need any more. It has a swimming pool. It has bedrooms, toilets, everything. So there's not really any need for anything else. So I figure, why not just fill in the garden? I think this is a 50 by 50 or possibly a 64 by 64 lot. And I like to cheat them a little bit. So I kind of fence it in a little bit closer just to make it a little bit more manageable, because once it gets too wide, it's too much. I decided to add like a pond and stuff as well, just to give it a little bit of extra touch landscaping. Actually, it's because I had an empty corner I didn't know what to do with, and I didn't feel like refencing it. So I thought a pond would be appropriate. I tried to use some like cherry blossom trees to kind of go with the house. It doesn't really work. I decide more on like mansion-y trees. When I say mansion trees, I mean those like long coniferous trees that are like really phallic and kind of line your house or whatever. You can see them in the land grab mansion. But yeah, so I can see now that I'm starting my terrain paint, and that's always the last thing I do for a build. So I just like to make sure that all my paths are nice and lined. There's like dirt where there should be. I like dirt under the trees and soil and stuff. So this is like my last final touch. So I guess that means that we're done with the build. So let's jump in and see what it actually looks like. So here we are in our gorgeous Victorian property here in Barnacle Bay. And in fact, I think it's probably the nicest thing in Barnacle Bay. Not that that really says anything, but I really tried hard on the front, and I think it really shows, because I'm used to that from The Sims 4. You have to make sure your front looks good or no one will download it, because the gallery just automatically takes a picture from the front. So for this, I thought it was a little bit more appropriate. I actually prefer The Sims 3 Exchange because it shows you the house like from far away first, and I think that gives you a better idea as to what it actually looks like. I've built some really ugly houses in The Sims 4 that had a really good thumbnail, and some really beautiful ones that had a horrible thumbnail. And since it's The Sims 3, I decided to make it look good from every side, which is something that EA doesn't do. I decided to put these little bay windows here on the side. I think the back is pretty nice with the tower. I decided the tower should just be all purple. I'm glad it's a little bit less yellow at the back, if that makes sense, because then I could add yellow to like this half wall and fencing and all that. And here's the gazebo. In fact, it looks like I left it empty, but there's a staircase up to the second floor. It's very private up there. I figure it's good for like romance or whatever, so you can stick a couple chairs up there if you want, or even a bed to woohoo, I guess. Going up here, we have the garage. There's room for 4 cars. So in the garage, I think I have space for 2, and outside the garage, I have space for 2. So you can have 2 in the driveway, 2 in the garage. Oh, I didn't put a light in the garage and all the plants are sticking through. I guess I didn't see that. When you're building a big house, sometimes you have oversights. And in fact, what I like to do is I like to do all those little changes before I put it up on the exchange. So that way, like, this is how I test it. I test it while annoyingly talking about it. So one of the worst things about this build is that it has the Barnacle Bay mailbox, because that's like the mailbox that comes with the world. But if we ignore that and go through our golden brick Corinthian gates, we come upon the main property. You can step right up into the house, or you can go over to the side here and you can go to the back area by the pool and everything. You can also get this way through the wraparound porch. So there's a few ways to get around, but everything is very sectioned off, so you shouldn't end up losing your Sims in the bush. Going into the front door here, we have like a nice grand entry hallway. I decided to use a little bit more green just for the hell of it. I figure, why not? There's a little seating area. I like the wooden floor with like a touch of golden diamond, because of course it's me, so it couldn't look normal. I have this pedestal in the middle, kind of like by the marble staircase, I didn't know what to put on here, so I left it empty. I like having a few things for like other people to put like their little extra touch, and I figure they can put their most prized possession there. Maybe they can put some like little like velvet ropes around it too. Going into the lounge, we can see it's brightened up a little bit. I kind of toned down the green. I used something a little bit lighter for the walls. It's a little bit blue and green mixed together, but from a distance, I think it's a nice color. And again, I stuck with like lighter woods. I decided to brighten it up a little bit because I always use dark woods, gray woods, black woods, and it doesn't work for every build. Behind this bookcase, which is between the dining room and the lounge, you have like a secret room which leads to the elevator, and this elevator is how you get to all like the secret floors and everything. I can't do a Victorian mansion without having secret passages. That's just like something I love. Going into the dining room, thank God I toned down the purple. I'm glad this is not Cassandra Goth purple. I took away a couple of the chairs, I made the tables smaller, and I included a bar. I like having a bar in my rich people's dining rooms. Oh no, I took away the bookcase door. I forgot about that. I used to have a bookcase door that led into the kitchen here, but I guess I decided that it was better for the elevator. The kitchen is not too bad. It's a malachite green, which is a little bit better. I like using these Edwardian appliances like the stove and the dishwasher. I think it adds a little bit of an extra historic touch, but it is a kitchen and I didn't decorate it too much. Oh, look at a Katy Perry sweet treats thing. I snuck it in there, but you know what, whatever. But I don't like to spend too much time on my kitchens because it's always the staff in the kitchen, never you, of course not. Oh my God, what's happening here with the floor? I'm gonna have to fix that too. Going into first person, you see things that you would never see before. So in the like half bathroom downstairs, which would be kind of like for guests and everything, I decided to put like a little fountain, a couple plants and end tables because I didn't want a bathtub in here or a shower. I didn't think it was appropriate, but it's as big as the other bathroom, so I had to fill it up with something. And coming out here, we have a back hall which exits on the other side of the grand staircase. So you can do like a full 360 on the first floor, and there's like lots of doors so your Sims shouldn't get stuck around. And going up to the second floor, I just kept like a similar wood and the same wallpaper throughout just to keep it harmonious. I added a big plant here because I didn't know what to do with 6 tiles. And if we scooch on this one side of the stairs, we can go out to the balcony where we can go on the side of the house. We can overlook the path. We can see the gazebo from here. And I think you can sneak all the way around here. I think I made it like this. So you can just go all the way around to the back here. There's not really like an extra patio or anything. It's just like somewhere where you can look out, maybe keep an eye on the kids in the pool. I don't know. I thought it was a fun idea. But technically when you come up the stairs, the first door that you're going to see is one of the bathrooms. So this is like the family bathroom. We have a bathtub and a shower. I have a toddler potty because I have a crib in the house. And I decided to just do like the touch of the golden yellow on the mirror just like to kind of balance out this. So this is the same malachite marble that I use, but I turn it to more of a blue for a bathroom, like a teal. Of course, it's me, so it's teal. Anyway, coming along this long Victorian hallway, we have a chest table, another seating area, and I want to start at the smallest bedroom and work to the biggest. So going in here, we have the toddler bedroom or the baby bedroom, and it would be appropriate for only one child, so make sure you don't have twins. If you have twins, you could just delete the lamp, the xylophone, and the dollhouse and just kind of do double of the crib. If you have triplets, I guess they're going in the attic, so that's okay. Going into the second bedroom, this is like the Johnny Zest bedroom, so to speak, so it's not for anyone specifically, it's just for some like random rich child. I kept it with like a lighter blue. This blue really reminds me of my granny. It's like an old-fashioned kind of blue, which kind of worked out, and I think it goes really well with like the lighter wood because I don't usually use woods like this, and it was a little bit of a challenge to find a blue that worked, but now I understand why people like more of the powdery blues. This room's got lots of paintings. Oh my God, a dragon painting. I love that painting. I think it's from Dragon Valley. But of course, over here you have the bookshelf door, which is between the 2 main bedrooms, and that leads to the second floor of like where the elevator is. And when you go into the master bedroom, and you know it's the master bedroom because of the double doors, you're met with a fuchsia bedroom because of course it's me. I had to do something a little bit weirder. So I decided to pair this with more of a white wood. Again, I don't mind using different woods in different rooms just to mix it up a little bit. This bookcase, it looks like the door one. It's not. It's just a regular bookcase. And you notice that there's 2 doors in the bedroom, and one of them leads to the washroom and the other one leads to the toilet room. So I kept that separate. In a lot of Victorian mansions, they have like separate toilet and washrooms. And actually in a lot of British houses in general, they have that. So in the washroom, I did everything you wash yourself with. So I did like the beautiful malachite fuchsia bathtub that I chose. And of course, a couple sinks. So that way you can kind of clean yourself up. And the toilet room is just like a little toilet room with a little light. So like nothing too fancy, just like a little water closet kind of thing. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the style. And I don't like having a giant toilet room if I do it separate. And I'm sure it's a glitchy mess, but we're just going to go up to the 3rd floor as well. And then up in the 3rd floor, I didn't want to really do it in first person right away. I just want to show you that the elevator leads directly to the attic, and it's got all these boarded up windows and everything. And the floor is uglier. The walls are 100 years old. And I figured that this is where you can stick all those extra things that I don't don't include in the build, because everyone has slightly different sims, and some sims need these gigantic objects that are just so annoying to keep in your game. Oh my god, this build tour is taking forever. This house is bigger than I thought. Going up to the 4th floor, which is actually the roof, you can see that you can go in through this little doorway here, and there's a spiral staircase, and when you go up to the top here, it lets you out onto the roof, which I've recently fenced off because I thought it was a little bit too dangerous with this little black fence. And again, I didn't stick anything up here. I didn't want to ruin the look of the build. You could stick like a fireplace inside and you'd have like a chimney, or you can do roof decorations, or you can stick skill building objects up here. Again, like you could easily put the telescope up here. It would work just fine. It takes a little longer for your sims to get up here, so I didn't really want to do that too much. But with a mansion, what do you expect, right? But yeah, coming back outside, like I'm pretty pleased with it. I think it's pretty good for a Sims 3 build. I'm getting better and better. I'm still learning like all the little things I can do with like platforms and split levels and all that. And thankfully, a Victorian doesn't call for too much of that. As long as you know how to do the roof, you should be okay, and a garden. But what did you guys think? Have you built like a giant house in The Sims 3 yet? Because I know a lot of you are kind of new to The Sims 3, coming off of The Sims 4 and trying to get the hang of things. And I know that it can be a little bit intimidating. I just wanted to show that it's not really one giant project. It's a bunch of little projects. Like the gazebo is a project, the roof is a project, the colors are a project. So let me know about your experience, or like what you thought of this, or if there's anything that you think that I could have done better. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe for some more Sims content. Oh my god, this took a lot out of me. This is what happened last time. Like I did this big mansion and I didn't do a speed build for so long. But you know what? It's all in the name of fun. I love building. I love doing this. I just don't like to force myself when I'm not really inspired. And for this, I was really inspired, and I think it really came through. But yeah, thanks again. And I would love to hear any of your mansion experiences with The Sims 3, because like I'm still learning. I think everyone's still learning a little bit. See you next time. Boom.